Hey, thanks for joining us. This is John from Vintage Watch Hunter. In today's video, we are going to replace this dirty, beaten up crystal on our Seiko Tuna 300 professional diver from the 1980s. As you can see, we have a new crystal for it. It's a 325 W16, and we're just taking a look at this watch. It's in pretty good condition overall. We are going to actually replace the crystal, pull the watch apart, and give it a bath today, so it'll come back all nice and new. And again, here's another crystal for you, or here's the crystal we'll be using. So we have a couple tools that we're going to need. We'll need a case back opener. We'll need a case vise to hold down our watch. We'll need some screwdrivers. We'll need some tweezers. And that's really about it. Alright, so first we're going to remove this case shield. Tuna Diver has this case shield. It's very well known on this watch, right? Seiko is known for the Tuna and this case shield. And it's really the only, I think it's the only set of watches that Seiko offered in this era that had this shield on it. So after a little inspection, you can see it's real dirty in there, and we're going to try and get rid of all that. Okay, so the next thing we are going to do with this watch is just do a little inspection, and again, it's got some dirt and grime. And from there, after that, we are going to remove that movement. We need to get the movement out just to protect the watch. We don't really need it in there anyway to get rid of the crystal. So we're going to pull out this crown just like that. And then we are going to turn over the watch onto the case cushion here and get rid of this movement. We're going to store away this movement right now. So here it goes. Okay, so the next thing that we are going to have to do is remove that bezel. Now it's working perfectly, and I do hope that it works just like that when we're putting it back together. Inside the bezel is an O-ring that you can lubricate as well to make sure that everything is working. I am actually not going to clean this bezel because I do like the patina that's on it, and I want to make sure that that does not get removed in the ultrasonic cleaner. So we're going to take this case back knife and we're going to shove it straight into that bezel. We're going to push it in straight, and we're not going to really turn it so much. If you try and turn it or give it force up or down or side to side, you run the risk of scratching that case. So we're just going to push it in different locations, and as you can see, the bezel is already coming up. And it looks like the bezel is off now. I'm recording this audio later, so you're not going to hear any of the actual grunts that I'm using to remove the bezel. But anyway, it's now off. Everything is safe, and we're just going to take a look and inspect this bezel, make sure everything is good. Everything looks nice in there. You can also see the O-ring that is intact on the inside. Okay, so we're going to put away the bezel, and from there we are going to remove this locking ring. This is I think unique to the 300 millimeter divers. 300 meter divers by Seiko. I haven't really seen this on any of the 200 meter divers. Generally, it's just a another what do you call it? Like another locking piece that you just press down. It doesn't actually turn down or screw down onto the case like this. At least the ones that I've seen, and I only work with the vintage ones. But so anyway, here we go. We're going to put it into our case vise, and we're going to try and open this. And I quickly realized that it's on super tight. It hasn't been touched in over 30 years. So it's just on really tight. So I got to my big guy, and I just loosened it up on my FRT remover there, the vintage little piece. And then it's now loose, so we're just going to show you, it comes right off. And that is, I think, really the hardest part of getting rid of the crystal. All of that now, we're down to the crystal, and we're good. Okay, be careful. I didn't notice this. This is the first time I'm working on this watch. There is a white plastic ring that we are going to need later. So make sure, if you're doing this to your 7549 Tuna, that you remove that white plastic ring and you put it in a very safe place. Okay, so now the crystal is just going to come out. We're just going to pop it out real quick, real easy, just like that. And the last thing we have to worry about is just the chapter ring. So you can see the chapter ring sitting in there. And so we're going to get rid of the gasket that seats the crystal down. And here's the chapter ring. And then the outer ring that seats around the gasket as well. Okay, so when you're putting this back together, remember that there is a cutout in the chapter ring. And it must line up perfectly to that notch in the bezel right there. It's got to line up perfectly with that or it's not going to seat. And if you try and put this back together when it's not perfect, you're going to damage your watch, and we really don't want to do that. Alright, so I just got everything out of the cleaner. It's all ready to go, and we're going to put it back. We're going to put the watch back together. So we'll just get some dust off there. Now, I do recommend that you install the movement back because you want to make sure that everything is aligned, right? That chapter ring has to be aligned perfectly with the dial. If you don't do it and you try and squeeze that crystal down when they're not perfectly lined up, you're going to break something. I don't know what, but you'll break it. So I like to say, let's put the movement back in. It's situated with the crown in, and it's perfect. So I just set the chapter ring in, and when you get it perfect, it just falls right together, the notch. And you could tell because everything is perfectly, balanced and symmetrical. There's no, the chapter ring isn't offset in any way. Okay, so now also we're going to get the outer or inner gasket ring in. We're going to press it down, make sure it's nice and flat again, that it's not lifted in any of its sections. So we'll just inspect that real quick. And now, once that is done, we are ready to reinstall the crystal gasket. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to source another one, so we're having to reuse the original one. Luckily, it's still pretty malleable. It's not hard and brittle, so it should be okay. However, I would not recommend this for professional diving anymore. It's an old vintage piece, so you got to kind of love it without really taking it down in the water. All right, so I was having a problem with this locking ring, and as you can see, we have to figure out what was wrong, and I realized there is that white plastic ring. It wasn't there earlier. It was stuck to the locking ring, and I didn't see it. So what you have to do is, before you put the crystal in, you want to seat that the gasket right in that little crevice there in the crystal. And now that I put the plastic ring back in, the locking ring is going to seat perfectly and easily. So we'll fast forward here. We're just going to lock it down nice and tight. Do this a little bit by hand, and then from there we put it into the case vise and we torque it down. So again, this watch may not be water resistant until 300 meters. I would not recommend diving in it. If you want to dive, I would highly recommend buying a new watch or one that you know is pressure tested to the 300 meters. And this one is not, so please do not dive in it. All right. So now the locking ring is back on. I did blow the dust off camera from the inside of the crystal and the dial, but anyway, make sure you do that. You don't want to put a crystal on and then realize that there's dust in there. All right. So here we go. As you can see, new crystal versus old. What a difference a crystal makes. I purchased this crystal from Spencer Klein for, I believe, $50. They make really good crystals, or they have them for sale. So anyway, here we go. It's time to install the bezel. And this is just going to go right down with your case back press. Now you have to have a case back press for this, otherwise you're not going to get an even press down of the bezel onto the case. So I have centered the bezel back up, and I'm just figuring out which are the perfect size dies to use to press this down. So we got one for the bottom, one for the top. All right, we're going to set this in to my case back press. And here we go. We're just going to give it a little test fitment press. Okay, it fits pretty good. So whenever you do this, make sure that you put a plastic bag on top of your watch. Anytime you press a bezel or crystal down or whatever it is, make sure you put a piece of plastic there so you don't damage your watch. And so here we go. Just going to give it a nice little press. It's hard to do this with the camera right on top, but little press, and it popped right on. So now our bezel is installed, and our watch is basically put back together. We're just going to test the bezel, make sure it turns properly, and it does. Now I had to get rid of the sound so that I could record over it, but if I did include the sound, you would hear that it has the perfect sound, the perfect click. It has a really nice feel in your hand and everything. So I would say this is pretty successful, and so we'll just stick that right back on top. And now we're ready for the shield to go back on. And again, this is just, your 3 screws. We're basically done. Very easy. So our watch is now cleaned, new crystal, everything like that. 3 little screws, 1, 2, and 3. Make sure those are tight. And now we are done. You have a nice new 7549-7010 with a perfect crystal. And we just need to put a little strap on there. And that brings us to the end of our show. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, congratulations. Please like and subscribe below. That would really help us out so we can make more of these videos for you in the future. If you do have any watches or collections that you are looking to sell, if you are a reseller or a wholesaler, please get a hold of me. I would be happy to speak to you, talk business, even buy a lot of watches. So, thank you so much for watching. Have a good day, and we'll see you on the next one.